much less security intensive type of process. They come in, they sit at literally a screen on the wall with a phone or even a microphone, and they don't have to get into your secure perimeter. So there's two things. It's less staff intensive. The other thing is that's one of the areas where the introduction of contraband into a jail is a real problem. So by keeping visitors on the outside with a video visit, the opportunity for introducing contraband is much less. And visitors find ways to do things with playing cards and all kinds of things, fish line, all types of things. So by not having them anywhere near the inmates, that whole contraband pass liability and issue really goes away.
I was going to ask also, you mentioned the idea of the off-site visitation for outside visitors. And we had talked about the possibility of using the, I think it was Chief Deputy Pinkerton who mentioned that, using the low-risk facility for that because we have parking there. How much space would be required out of that building? Was it 1,500 to 2,000 square feet of that building approximately?
I would say 2,000 square feet would be sufficient. Space for restrooms and space for waiting, control station, and then space for approximately 50 visitation booths.
And that would clearly reduce the congestion that we would have in and out of the downtown jail.
Yes.
In the area. One other question: how does the height of this design concept compare to the current building, the Carlton that's sitting there?
This is a little bit shorter. We're at a 5. If we did 5 levels here, I think we had 120, about 120 feet high. The Carlton building, I believe, is 16 stories, and it's 11-foot floor-to-floor height. So it's a little taller than that. So it's going to be, about a quarter, I would say, shorter than the existing Carlton building.
Okay.
Only much bigger in mass.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the aesthetics of the facility, and as we were talking about, we're still very early in the stage, but I think, this right now, it appears to be pretty much a block, and with windows. So there's things we would do as far as exploring other ways to break up the mass, to break up the way it looks on the outside, mixing different materials, mixing different types of window configurations. Again, with the freedom of not having to deal with jail cell windows on the outside really allows us to do much more with the exterior and really and blend that in. And I think, as you were asking before, we'd be happy to have presentations and even reviews, workshops with with folks that are interested in how the facility's coming along to talk about the aesthetics and talk about what really fits in best. The community's going to own the facility, so they need to be happy with it.
Sure. And I want to point out that Kurt also had some of the documents from the downtown committee of Tower 21 that he looked at when they were doing this design concept, and we realize that's an important thing to consider in the design. Okay, other members of the court or the task force, questions? Ashton?
Yep, these are from Randy Gilbert. He had to go to court
Okay.
on that, but he wanted me to ask a couple. The current jail has only 3 attorney conference rooms, so video conferencing works on occasions. There's often a need for direct contact for reviewing documents, discovery, etc. That could not effectively be accomplished by video. The 3 existing rooms are woefully inadequate. How many direct conference rooms are available?
Told you this would be important, Kurt.
Yeah. The plan we have now is at 6 non-contact attorney visitation, and then 2 contact attorney visitations, and then we have a couple shown on the first floor of the existing jail, so there's 10.
But there are there's some additional rooms in the administrative areas that could be utilized for conferences if there had a need for parole hearings, that sort of thing, that would accommodate that use.
Yes.
And if you'll explain the non-contact booths, that's simply, my understanding is it's simply an area that you walk into, or is it an enclosed booth? Secure?
Yes.
A couple of them would be closed.
With windows in between?
Correct, with windows in between and an enclosed booth for the attorney.
And the attorney would be able to pass paperwork back and forth for getting signatures and that sort of thing.
Depending on how much of that you want, yeah. That's definitely a detail we want to talk a lot about because that affects how the jail is operated and managed as well.
Sure.
How much can go back and forth between an attorney and an inmate. So we can talk about that.
Judge, in that regard, again, I think that's an important sort of user feature for the jail, and I suggest that some contact be made with the local criminal bar, get their input, just make sure that we don't have an issue there that we need to look at.
I agree. It's a good point. Additional questions?
Discussion on the furniture. Since we have a CME, would it be advisable if we would let the bed and the other furniture be separate contract, not in the construction part of the contract? Take for instance the beds.
Typically,
Contract for that to go out and purchase the bed. Buy the bed direct from the manufacturer. They have it install their own bed.
Typically, the folks that provide the cells also are the direct manufacturers and purchase of the beds as well. Usually, they provide the whole package, and one of the important parts about that is that when
Now that has its good effects and its bad effects. You've got to have a good construction manager on top of everything. If he's not working with the contractor with pipe in the wrong place like that, well, that's
in our experience, to be able to leave a number of those things in the same package
You
under
look
one.
at the overhead.
Mhm.
Look at the contractor's overhead and the buyer's overhead, the
Right.
manufacturer's overhead.
And who's going to manage the overhead,
Yep.
and what it costs to manage the overhead as well.
part of the solution or the answer to that may be, in this particular project, we have a low-risk facility, which is a dormitory, and those beds are easily purchased separately and put in, by the county. And then we have the jail tower where we have maximum security and separation cells where the beds need to be welded to the walls as well as the desks and those kinds of things. So, I would say, certainly some of it could be purchased separately by the county to eliminate that overhead that you're talking about. But it's also important to remember that when you take something like that out of the project, you're responsible then, or the county is responsible for coordinating the installation of it. And we have embed plates that need to be put into the wall at the right locations so that the beds can be welded. And if something goes wrong and it gets installed a couple inches too low or a couple inches too high, then who's responsible for fixing it? It becomes a huge issue. So I think in some cases, we could look at having the owner purchase some of those beds on their own, and in others, I would recommend not.
Thank you. Additional questions?
I've got a couple of questions and a couple of comments. First of all, it was a good presentation, especially for the amount of time you had to put this thing together, so we appreciate that. On the kitchen, laundry, infrastructure like that, is it sized to accommodate expansion in the future?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And back on Gaylord's comment, I think a comment y'all made on the exterior facade of the building. Since you do have that service court around the exterior, I think there's a lot more possibility for getting some relief in the building, or maybe some symmetry in the design and introduction of more materials, or maybe architectural elements that tie into more downtown. And I know you did it quick, but those particular elevations, and it's a big building, is there some way you could break up that mass a little bit and tie it into the scale of downtown?
Certainly, and we'll be glad to work with anyone who wants to help us with that. You always want to be careful, and we want your input on this, because we don't want to make the building look too nice. People may feel that we're building too nice of a facility for a jail. We don't want to go on that end either. So it's kind of a delicate line, and we want to make sure that we have your input so that doesn't happen as well. We can design it to be beautiful, but we don't want to get people to think it's too nice.
If you want it beautiful, we'll make it beautiful.
Yeah.
We may want to design it to look like a tent. That would.
Thanks a lot.
A couple of good things I saw, utilizing existing properties and infrastructure like the tunnel, the existing jail, existing county-owned properties and buildings, and especially